So I'm approaching 50 years old, and by about this time, I'm thinking I'm due for a midlife crisis. But see, the thing is, I had my midlife crisis when I was 20 years old, because I wasn't quite a teenager anymore, and I wasn't 21, so in my mind I'm thinking, well, what are you? I was going to Shippensburg University at the time. I was studying journalism. I came there thinking I wanted to be a radio DJ. I grew up outside New York City. I grew up with Howard Stern. I'm like, I could do that. I spent 2 years at WSYC. I was terrible. I didn't know music and I wasn't funny. So I tried SUTV. I thought, all right, let me try TV. I was terrible. I wasn't good on camera. It just did not go well. So what I did was I took a photo course. And I stole my dad's camera and I took a photo course and I thought, this is kind of cool. So I joined the school newspaper. Best decision I ever made. The people who work in a newsroom are just enough off-center to be interesting, but not enough to be dangerous. So while I was working there, I got a part-time job with the Public Opinion while I was still in school in Chambersburg. So it was probably around 1993, and it was my Easter vacation. I was home in New Jersey, and my dad's like, now I'm going to do an impersonation of my dad, so just trust me that this is what he sounds like. I'm Jersey dad. He's like, it's going to be a big storm coming up here. They're calling it the storm of the century. Maybe you should drive back a little early. My roommate, I lived on Bird Street at the time. So I said, fine. Jumped in my Volkswagen Jetta, 1984. No four-wheel drive, and drive from New Jersey right outside of New York City to Shippensburg. Takes me about 3 hours. Spun out about 8 or 9 times. Finally get here, park my car. Next day, full-blown storm of the century. I mean, like, they're calling on the news, this is what everyone's saying. Chris Farley's like, it's El Nino, or in English, it stands for the Nino. So I'm like, all right, my roommates aren't here. I don't know much about how to take care of myself in a storm. I'm a college kid. I never lived by myself. What the hell do I know? So I thought, you know what? I better get a couple jugs of water in case my toilet and the pipe freeze for my toilet, and I'll get some food. So I go over here onto King Street, and I go over to, there's a Rite Aid or some kind of pharmacy. But I thought, you know what? At the time, I'm thinking maybe I should take my camera and take some photos if I see anything interesting. So I grab my camera, load in film. So film, yes. So instead of having thousands of photographs, I get 12 shots. That's all I can get, 12 shots, good or bad. I don't get to see in the back of my camera. I don't get to know if I got a shot or not. It's like, live or die. So I walk up to Rite Aid on King Street, and I get out of there, and as soon as I walk up, and I get my stuff, I have 2 bags, gallons of water, some food and snacks. Up pulls up a horse and buggy. It was like if you ever watch those kung fu movies where suddenly the camera comes up to people's faces really quick when they're about to fight. It's like, whoosh, and then the horse's face is like, whoosh, and we're staring at each other. And I'm like, shit. And I drop everything I have except my camera. And let me tell you something. I'm slow. But that day, I was the damn Flash. I ran and tried to keep ahead of this horse. I must have got about a half a block from this horse. He gets about 20 feet from me. Boom, 1 shot. He gets about halfway up the block. Boom, another shot. I have no clue what I have. So I decide, you know what? The next day, I'll get to Chambersburg. I'll process my film and I'll see what I got. Well, the next day, we've had about over 2 feet of snow. If you guys remember the storm, my Jetta is buried. I have no way of getting to Chambersburg. There's no Uber. So what I decide to do is I start to walk. So it's actually a beautiful day, the day after. It's like sunny, but there's like snow everywhere. So I just start to walk. And at some point, I do something that I was told my whole life not to do. Stuck my thumb out. And I'm looking for someone who's going to drive me to Chambersburg. So suddenly, people are passing me by. Now, I've got like layers of clothes on from like me and my roommates. I don't know what I look like, but I'm sure if I drove past me, I would not have picked me up. So finally, this guy in this red pickup truck pulls up and stops his car, and I'm like, hey, I'm taking some photos, want to get to Chambersburg. I do part-time work for the Public Opinion. I just want to get there. And he's like, yeah, I'll drive you. So I go to get in his car, and he goes, Like there's a dog sitting in his driver's seat, and he goes, you are in the hatch. You're in the back. So like, here's the flatbed of his truck, and I'm laying there, filled with snow in the back of his truck, and we're driving to Chambersburg, and I'm just like, I'm not exaggerating. I'm laying on the back, and the snow actually feels kind of comfy and warm, and I'm thinking, this is awesome. I'm thinking to myself going, this is like the most amazing adventure I've ever been on. And I still at this point don't even know if I have a photograph or not. So I'm laying there, he takes me all the way to Chambersburg, drops me off in the parking lot of Public Opinion. Now, when you were a kid and you ran across a parking lot or an area that like was untouched by other people, it was like, I didn't even care about getting into the building at first. I'm just running around in the parking lot, stomping around. Like, I'm the first person to make like footprints in the snow, and I'm having a blast. And suddenly people start pulling up and they see me like running around the parking lot. I'm like, no, I'm coming in, it's okay. You know, I still don't know what I have. So I roll my film out, put it in the processor, pull it out, 2 frames, both turned out. One was this like vertical shot of like this, I was flashed with like the horse with the snow bearing down on him as he's coming, and the other one is like this distant shot with this lone horse and buggy going down the street. And at that point, you could send photographs to the Associated Press. And so, which is an international news service. So I'm just this student from Shippensburg, part-time, working for Chambersburg, and I send my photos off, and my photos go all over the country. And it was like, people were telling me they were seeing my photo in Philly and California and all these places, because this was the storm of the century. This was the Nino. And I was just like, all I kept thinking was how glad I was that my dad told me to leave early. And so like, I'm like, cool, I got these shots and everyone loves my photos, and I'm like, all right, hey, can someone give me a ride back to Shippensburg? And they're like, no, we gotta go out and cover the news, so you're gonna have to find your way back to Shippensburg. So once again, I start walking, I start sticking my thumb out, and I get a ride back to Shippensburg. And later that year, I come to find out that they chose one of my photographs as the AP Photos of the Year for that storm. So, right, 25 years later, an awesome, unforgettable, unbelievable, never regrettable moment of photojournalism in my life, between being 25 years in York and Chambersburg doing photojournalism. So as I approach 50, I think to myself, when I was out that day, out in the cold, doing what I do, hitchhiking, walking, shooting, running, stomping, man, if I have another midlife crisis here at 50, I can't wait to see what the next 25 years bring. Thank you very much.